friends, colleagues, fellow citizens, and enemies, today I want to discuss a range of foreign policy decisions and proposals made during the Trump administration that significantly impacted and continue to impact the United States' relationships with its neighbors and other nations. These actions, while presented with varying justifications, raise serious questions about their long-term consequences and their alignment with traditional American values and interests. Turf wars with Canada and Mexico. The Trump administration's approach to relations with Canada and Mexico was characterized by a confrontational style, often prioritizing short-term economic gains over long-term strategic partnerships. The renegotiation of NAFTA, now ASEAN, while ultimately successful, was marked by significant tension and threats of withdrawal. This approach, in my opinion, undermined the trust and cooperation that are essential for managing shared borders, trade, and security challenges. As Winston Churchill famously said, to improve is to change. To be perfect is to change often, but the changes implemented felt more like disruptions than improvements to established, beneficial relationships. The constant threats and aggressive rhetoric created unnecessary instability and uncertainty for businesses and citizens on both sides of the border. The 51st state and the Panama Canal. The idea of Canada becoming the 51st state, while never seriously pursued, highlights a disregard for the sovereignty of our neighbors. Similarly, discussions surrounding the potential purchase of the Panama Canal, while ultimately not realized, demonstrate a willingness to engage in actions that could be perceived as imperialistic and destabilizing to the region. Such actions, I believe, are counterproductive to fostering positive relationships based on mutual respect and shared interests. South Africa, sanctions and resettlement. The Trump administration's policy towards South Africa was marked by a complex interplay of sanctions and offers of resettlement. While sanctions were imposed on certain individuals and entities, the offer to allow South Africans to resettle in the United States presented a seemingly contradictory approach. This inconsistency, in my view, lacks strategic clarity and potentially undermined the effectiveness of any intended message. It also raises questions about the fairness and consistency of U.S. immigration policy. Greenland and resistance. The attempted purchase of Greenland met with significant resistance from the Danish government, further exemplifies the administration's willingness to pursue unconventional and potentially controversial foreign policy initiatives. This action, I feel, demonstrated a lack of sensitivity to the historical and cultural context of Greenland's relationship with Denmark, and ultimately damaged the U.S.'s reputation as a respectful partner in international affairs. The quote, "Diplomacy is the art of letting someone else have your way," by Daniel Webster, seems particularly relevant here. The approach taken was far from diplomatic. In conclusion, the foreign policy decisions and proposals discussed today raise serious concerns about the long-term implications for U.S. relations with its neighbors and other nations, the emphasis on short-term gains, the disregard for established diplomatic norms, and the inconsistent application of policy created unnecessary instability and damaged trust. I believe a more consistent, respectful, and strategically sound approach is crucial for safeguarding American interests and promoting a more peaceful and prosperous world. We must remember that strong alliances and mutual respect are far more valuable than fleeting economic advantages achieved through aggressive tactics.